Empires rise with fire and fall with silence, but their souls often survive in the cultures they embrace. And in the Abbasid Caliphate, that soul was deeply, unmistakably Persian. When the Abbasids seized power in the mid-8th century, they inherited not only a political mantle, but a vast, ancient cultural legacy. Though born of Arab revolution, their empire soon found its rhythm in Persian poetry, its intellect in Persian philosophy, and its order in Persian administration. This was no mere coincidence. It was a deliberate integration, an acknowledgement that to govern a diverse, sprawling realm, the Abbasids would need more than the sword and the Quran. They would need the wisdom of centuries, the refinement of dynasties past, and the minds of Persian scholars, scribes, and statesmen. In this exploration, we'll uncover the deep, often overlooked Persian influence that shaped the Abbasid court, from its architecture and bureaucracy to its philosophy, literature, and vision of kingship. It is a story not just of governance, but of identity, synthesis, and the making of a truly cosmopolitan Islamic empire. And if this kind of in-depth, emotionally intelligent historical storytelling matters to you, we invite you to help us continue this work. Support links are in the description. Your contributions make these stories possible. Now, let us journey back to the banks of the Tigris, where Arab faith met Persian form and the Islamic Golden Age was born. The Abbasid Revolution and the Persian Foundations of Power. The Abbasid rise to power in 750 CE was more than a change in leadership. It was a cultural pivot. While the Umayyads had centralized Arab dominance, often sidelining non-Arab Muslims, the Abbasids came to power with crucial support from the eastern provinces of the Islamic world, particularly Khorasan, a Persian-majority region. The revolutionary movement that swept the Abbasids into power was led by Abu Muslim, a Persian general whose charisma and military brilliance galvanized disenfranchised populations. For many Persians, the Abbasid cause was more than a political shift. It represented the promise of a more inclusive Islamic society. Once in power, the Abbasids reciprocated this support. They shifted the empire's center eastward, symbolized by the founding of Baghdad in 762 CE, just miles from the ruins of the ancient Persian capital Ctesiphon. This wasn't merely geographic convenience. It was a deliberate alignment with Persian political heritage. The Persianization of the Abbasid bureaucracy. Perhaps nowhere was Persian influence more profound than in the administrative machinery of the Abbasid state. The role of the vizier, a high-ranking political advisor and executive, was directly inherited from Sasanian models. The Abbasid vizier was not simply a minister, he was the central figure in governance, overseeing the entire bureaucracy with near-sovereign authority under the Caliph. The most notable vizierial family of the early Abbasid period was the Barmakids, of Persian origin, with ancestral ties to Buddhist priesthoods in Balkh. Their transformation into Islamic administrators exemplifies the cultural synthesis of the period. Under Caliph Harun al-Rashid, the Barmakids elevated the efficiency and sophistication of the court, introducing structured governance, record-keeping systems, and hierarchical offices, all deeply inspired by pre-Islamic Persian administration. Moreover, Persian became the language of bureaucracy in many regions, while Arabic remained the language of theology and jurisprudence, the language of taxation, correspondence, and day-to-day governance increasingly reflected Persian influence, both in vocabulary and format. Court culture and the aesthetics of Persian kingship. The Abbasids did not only borrow Persian administrative practices, they adopted Persian courtly culture in form and symbolism. Inspired by the Sasanian model, Abbasid caliphs began to present themselves not just as spiritual leaders, but as cosmic monarchs, elevated above the common order. The caliph was increasingly hidden behind screens, his audience rarefied, his court ceremonies laden with ritual, an echo of the Persian concept of the Shahanshah, or King of Kings. The court itself became a place of intellectual and aesthetic refinement, drawing from Persian ideals of etiquette, hospitality, and elegance. Robes, titles, and ceremonial forms reflected Persian sensibilities. Even the physical spaces, gardens, palaces, and libraries embodied Persian architectural principles, from symmetry and water features to the use of enclosed courtyards and geometric ornamentation. In essence, the Abbasid court became a theater of legitimacy, where Islamic governance was cloaked in the grandeur of Persian imperial tradition. Intellectual legacy: Persian minds in an Arabic age. The Abbasid era is rightly known as the Islamic Golden Age, and much of its intellectual brilliance owes its form to Persian scholars, scientists, and philosophers. Though Arabic was the lingua franca of learning, many of the greatest minds behind Abbasid scholarship were Persian. Al-Farabi, Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, Avicenna, and Al-Biruni, all of Persian descent, made transformative contributions to fields ranging from logic and medicine to mathematics and astronomy. The Abbasid state sponsored a vast translation movement centered in the Beit al-Hikmah, or House of Wisdom, in Baghdad. Here, Persian intellectuals helped translate and transmit the knowledge of Greece, India, and Persia into Arabic, synthesizing it into something uniquely Islamic. This wasn't passive adoption, it was active integration and reinterpretation. Persian philosophical traditions, particularly Neoplatonism and Zoroastrian metaphysics, found new life within Islamic theology and Sufism. The result was a cultural and intellectual ferment that redefined the limits of knowledge in the medieval world. Literature and the rebirth of the Persian language. While Arabic dominated formal discourse, Persian remained the language of the heart, and it began to reemerge as a literary force. The Abbasid court witnessed the early revival of Persian poetry, often centered in eastern provinces like Khorasan and Transoxiana. These literary circles preserved and reimagined themes from Iran's pre-Islamic past: heroism, fate, divine justice, now refracted through an Islamic lens. This revival culminated in works like the Shahnameh, completed in the early 11th century by Ferdowsi, but nurtured under Abbasid patronage. Though the Shahnameh postdates the early Abbasids, its literary spirit was born from the Persian Islamic synthesis fostered at the Abbasid court. Even in Arabic literary forms such as adab, makama, and hikaya, Persian storytelling left its imprint: moral allegories, romantic tropes, and didactic fables, many of which echoed Zoroastrian and Indo-Iranian motifs. Theological and mystical dimensions of Persian influence. Persian influence extended deeply into Islamic spirituality and theology. In the realm of theology, many early Shia communities were centered in Persian regions. Cities like Qom and Rai became strongholds of Shi'i scholarship, where the memory of the Prophet's family was preserved and venerated, often in opposition to Arab aristocratic dominance. At the same time, Sufism, the mystical dimension of Islam, began to take shape. Many early Sufi figures, such as Bayazid Bastami and Junaid of Baghdad, emerged from Persian contexts. Their teachings emphasized inner purification, divine love, and cosmic unity, echoing pre-Islamic Persian mysticism while remaining firmly within Islamic theological boundaries. Sufism would later flourish in Persian-speaking regions, and Persian would become its primary language. Poets like Rumi, Hafiz, and Attar would carry this mystical tradition to its poetic heights, but the Abbasid court laid the groundwork. Legacy: a civilization transformed. The Persian influence on the Abbasid court was not an episode, it was a transformation. It reshaped Islamic governance, aesthetics, scholarship, and spirituality, leaving an imprint that would endure long after the fall of the Caliphate. When the Mongols destroyed Baghdad in 1258, they ended an era, but they could not erase what had been created. The cultural synthesis forged under Abbasid patronage lived on in the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires, all of which drew heavily from the Persianized model of Islamic governance. In the end, the Abbasid Caliphate became a mirror of two civilizations: the spiritual inheritance of Islam and the intellectual legacy of Iran. It was in this fusion of Arab revelation and Persian refinement that the Abbasid court found its unique identity. In the story of the Abbasid Caliphate, the Persian influence was not a mere accessory. It was a central pillar. It provided the administrative blueprint, the intellectual engine, the artistic elegance, and the mystical depth that would define Islamic civilization for centuries to come. The Abbasids may have claimed their legitimacy through bloodlines to the Prophet, but their empire lived and breathed through the contributions of Persian minds and traditions. This was not the subjugation of one culture by another. It was a remarkable synthesis, a cultural embrace that gave birth to one of the most brilliant epochs in world history. From the silent courtyards of the Baghdad palace to the illuminated pages of Persian poetry, from the philosopher's study to the Sufi's retreat, the Persian legacy endured. It remains with us still, not only in texts and monuments, but in the very fabric of what we understand as the Islamic world. If this journey through history has moved you, informed you, or challenged how you see the past, we ask you to support our work. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps immensely. And if you believe in what we're doing, consider supporting us financially. The links are in the description below, and every contribution helps us continue telling stories that matter. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.